All right. So now I'm going to take you on a little tour of our Blackboard site for this semester. So when you come to the Blackboard site, the first page you are going to see is going to be the announcements page. And here's the announcement that you guys got for the first day of classes. And these will go out as emails like I've said before, but you might want to just double check there's not anything that you missed. On the left here, you have all these tabs. So as per the instructions of this semester, it says first, check out the Welcome to History 131 tab. So there is the welcome video that you hopefully watched in the announcement. Here is the folder where you have found this Blackboard Tour video. Here's another place where the syllabus is. The syllabus is also over here. Reading breakdown. Let's talk about that, shall we? So the reading breakdown is a list of everything that you will be reading this semester, and it also has important due dates. Okay, so here's week 1, and as I mentioned before, you do not need to have your textbook or your document reader book yet for week 1. You will watch the lectures under week 1 and you will read these documents that are on week 1 in Blackboard. So when we get to the assignments tab, I will show you exactly, where all that stuff is. You have a discussion board FAQ document as well. This is just some things you should ask yourself when you are writing and submitting your discussion board. And as mentioned on the document itself, it is rated, it's listed in order of importance. So the very first question that you should ask yourself is what counts the most? Did you answer each question? Did you do so comprehensively? So did you fully answer the questions for the prompt? That's the most important thing. Did you use the proper sources? Is there a document? You have to use at least one, right? You gotta have textbook and lecture in there for most weeks as well. Did you cite your sources? As I mentioned in that syllabus video, and when we get to our week 1 folder, you'll see that there is a video on how to cite your sources. Is your post organized and broken into paragraphs? Nobody wants to read a giant blob. Please, please, please use paragraph breaks. They will help break up your topics and ideas. It will read cleaner and more organized if you have it broken up into paragraphs. Okay, have you answered the questions in a chronological way? In this class, let's say that we were going to talk about the antebellum period in the South. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. That's the first half of the 19th century, so the early 1800s. Let's say you start talking about abolition, which is the movement that wants to get rid of slavery, and then you start talking about the invention of the steamboat. You've just gone backwards in time. So make sure you go chronologically. Do you have a conclusion that ties everything together? Did you proofread your work? You can read it out loud to yourself. I've done that with my own work before. It really helps you catch clunky sentences, grammar and spelling issues. Remember to proofread, okay? Spell check isn't going to cut it all by itself. If you meant to write from and you wrote form is spelled correctly. Spell check's not going to catch that, so be sure to proofread, okay? It plays a smaller role in the grading unless it is so distracting that I can't really read what you are trying to write. I've had people sort of just put in a bunch of stuff and they write it really fast right before the deadline. They don't proofread, and it is hard to read it because it is so full of misspelled words and just really weird run-on sentences or incomplete sentences and all kinds of stuff. So please proofread your work. And did you comment on at least 2 other students' posts? Remember, this is a discussion. So you need to comment, and you need to add to the conversation when you comment. It can't just be, good job, or I agree. You can agree if you want. You can say that they did a good job if you want, but you also need to say, well, when you talked about Spanish colonization, I thought about this, or, according to this document, it also mentioned this part of New Mexico, or something like that. So you have to, if you want to use sources, that's great. That'll make the comment stronger and better and add more to the conversation. but you need to do something that adds to the discussion. You can't just be like, yay, you did a good job. And make sure you are respectful. If you disagree with something that they said, if they have a take on something that you disagree with, you can absolutely disagree with them. That makes for great conversations and discussions. Just again, like I mentioned when I talked about the syllabus, be respectful when you disagree. So that's that, and that is under welcome as well. That is the reading breakdown again. It's under welcome as well. It's got, you know, all the really important stuff, the readings that you have for the entire semester. So be sure you pay attention to those. This is a primary document checklist. This is just some things you can ask yourself as you're reading. Some of the questions include, you know, what was the motivation of the author? What's left out of the document? What does the document talk about? What did the document mean in its own time? This is a handout on plagiarism. Is this plagiarism? If you're not sure, of course, contact me, but this just might be a helpful guide to make sure that, because you should always cite your sources, even if it's not a quote. If you are paraphrasing something that did not come from your own brain and it came from a book, you have to cite it. Otherwise, you're taking someone else's information and you're trying to pass it off as your own. So make sure you cite your work. Active and passive voice. When you're writing, active voice is often the best voice. This handout just shows you the difference between the two. And, okay, I can actually give you an example. So if I was to say, the resistance of slaves in the South, that is passive. If I was going to say, slaves resisted their conditions in the South, that is active. So it makes it more, it makes it stronger. It makes it a better sentence. You know, I'm giving agency to the slaves. They are the ones resisting, right? So that's Welcome to History 131. If you come over here and you go to the Assignments tab, like I said when I mentioned how organized I am, here are all of the weeks of the semester. And each week, if we have something important happening, you know, like Monday's a holiday, we're not affected by that because we're online. You have a paper due Friday, week 4, that's on there. All the dates are updated for the semester. So if we go to the introduction, well, by the time you get to this, there will actually be a discussion board in here. So what you'll want to do is click on this and introduce yourself in the introduce yourself discussion board that's in there. For week 1, remember, because introduce yourself discussion board and week 1 are both due by January 11th. So if you go into week 1, which is next week, our first full week of the semester, starts on Monday the 7th. Here are the outline for the lecture and my notes for the lecture. If you click on this folder, here are the lecture videos. Okay, it's broken into 4 parts. I like to break them down a little bit, so that way it's easier to pause and take breaks if you want to. Here are 2 of your readings. The Aztec reading will be on here by the time you see this. And you have a Columbus reading that's through History Study Center. You cannot access History Study Center through the regular links to documents off campus. You have to follow these instructions to get to it. I've also posted a video. This video shows you, I walk you through exactly how to get to History Study Center and how to get to this document here, okay? So read these instructions, watch this video. If you do both of those things and still can't figure out how to get to this letter, please contact me, okay? Here's that video on how to cite your sources for your discussion board. And at the very bottom, here's week 1's discussion board question. So it's going to be, how did Native and European societies differ before contact and how were they similar? Okay. So that'll be due on the 11th, just like your Introduce Yourself discussion board will be due on the 11th. So that is the Assignments tab. Everything is in there. All the discussion boards are linked in there, so you don't necessarily have to go to this discussion board tab over here. You can just, if you're in the week and you're watching the videos and reading stuff, then the discussion board's right in here. All right, so if you go to the My Instructor tab, look, it's me. There's a picture of me before I had children. You can tell that I haven't had children yet in this picture because I look well rested. So There's my face. Let's see. We're not really going to use any of those. The grades tab, your feedback will be in there. Your grades will be in there, obviously. Let's see. Grade center. Woohoo! So, got all your stuff in there, including your weighted total. That's where you're going to want to look for your grade and your percentage. That's where, you know, like 98%, 85%, that's where your grade will be. Let's see. I'm going to move this. All right, enrollment verification quiz. You will need to complete this before the end of the day on January 14th, because that's our census date, just keeps you in the class. So make sure you do that. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else to do. Campus safety tab is really, really important. What to do in an emergency. Student academic and technical resources is also a really important tab. This has information on JOLT. They can help you, like if you're submitting a test and it gets all weird, contact JOLT and me. Those are the first things you're going to do. Academic help, the academic skills centers in the library, they're great. They've got a writing center. We've got papers in here. So all kinds of helpful. And thus concludes the tour of our Blackboard site. I think I covered everything. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, make sure that your icebreaker and your week 1 discussion board they're due on Friday, January 11th. So make sure those are in by 11:59 p.m. And your enrollment verification quiz is due on January 14th by the very end of the day as well. And of course, as always, you will hear me end many things with this. Contact me with any questions.